Welcome to Primetime Picks on Daily Dodge TV and 1430 ESPN Beaver Dam. Sitting alongside me is Corey Sparks. I'm Charlie Dern. This week we've got our highs and lows. We've got some lessons learned, our canceled list, and then we're diving into the waiver wire a little bit as the bye weeks this week are pretty tough in fantasy football. And then as always, we've got our picks for the week 10 of the NFL. Corey, I'm really disappointed. I was really picking up steam. I was looking good. I was starting to win my picks. I was sitting at 3-5, and now I'm sitting at 3-7. I lost both of mine. I did hit my anytime score, but you had a great week.
Yeah.
So let's start with that. What did you get right?
We'll start with the highs. Yeah, so Charlie, you and I went toe-to-toe. Someone had to go down. We're doing it again this week. Little teaser for that. But, yeah, 2-0 against the spread. Positive manifestation. I said I was down in the dumps for sure. Just about everything went wrong in week 8 and all the picks really. 2-0 against the spread. Got very lucky with the Cowboys-Eagles game. We have 2 plays where this team was 2 yards and then I would say with that Schoonmaker touchdown inches away from scoring, and that would have flipped. So definitely got a little luck on our side. We always need a little bit of that. And C.J. Stroud is him. I feel like anybody who had C.J. Stroud on their fantasy team, and I was one of them for one of my teams, he was probably your backup or your last-ditch effort. Hopefully you didn't drop him after a week or something because he ended up being everything we wanted and more. He's also spreading the love. I really like how he's going about his business, getting Nico Collins, Noah Brown, Dalton Schultz, Tank Dell. I really feel like every week it's a new name involved. There's not really one true wide receiver one. It's technically Collins, but the reason I like that is if one person goes down, C.J. Stroud's not down in the dumps. He has 3, 4, 5 other options. Phenomenal job of spreading the ball out, and I think really he was a great value pick from the start.
For me, I got Chris Olave's touchdown right. We said it last week. We're going to try to not do the whole he's due thing.
It paid off.
I did it anyways, and it worked. It worked.
Off.
He was playing against the Bears, so he had plenty of opportunities in that game. I'm okay with that being the only win that I had. It was plus money, so I didn't go down horribly on the week. And then my other one that was a high, of course, I didn't talk about it on the show. The Chargers, I just took them on the money line against the Jets Monday Night Football. They blew them out. More or less, it's questioning still. Are the Chargers good or are the Jets overrated? I still don't really know.
I'd say a little bit of both right now, right? The Chargers are going through every injury you could possibly imagine. Joshua Palmer's on the IR. Mike Williams is out for the season. They just got Austin Eckler back, and Justin Herbert has 9 fingers. So there's a lot to dive into there for sure.
Well, I can tell you for sure that I'm going to continue betting on the Chargers. After that game, fair. I'm going to continue doing that. As for lows, I picked the Seahawks. I thought they could maybe win outright last week against the Ravens. They lost by like 30. The Ravens are really good, and they are for real. So I understand why it happened that way. The Ravens have now blown out 2 teams in the NFC, the Lions and the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks are frauds. I think that's what I took away from that game. The Seahawks, they've won 5 games, and they've looked really good in those games. But that loss was really bad, and they could have lost to the Lions earlier in the year. I'm not canceling the Seahawks by any means, but I'm scratching them off. I'm writing them off on the Super Bowl.
Okay.
That's over. They'll probably make the playoffs, but they're not going to do anything. And I know what happens when you write Geno Smith off.
I was just about to say, that's interesting terminology to use with Geno Smith. But
when you write him off, he doesn't write back. So, yep. And then, like you mentioned earlier, I had the Cowboys over the Eagles in that one. I had them plus the 3 points. I thought they could probably win that game, and they had so many opportunities that they could have won the game. But this is something that we've seen with the Cowboys time and time again. They can't get over the hump. Dak just can't make that play at the end of the game. The very last play of the game, I don't even know who he threw it to. It was like their wide receiver 5. He had Ferguson running down the field wide open. Just go to CeeDee Lamb. He had 191 yards at that point. Just throw to him again. He steps out of bounds on the 2-point conversion. That Schoonmaker touchdown where I still don't know what a catch is, because if you can't survive the ground with the ball, it's not a catch, but I just don't know what a catch is. It's a speculative rule.
Yeah.
I still don't know what a catch is.
I don't think the NFL officials know what a catch is.
They have to figure this out, because if, like in that scenario, he technically didn't have the ball until he was also down, but at that point the ball was over the line. I'm really mad about that game.
Broke the plane.
As some sort of Cowboy fan this season, I really wanted them to pull that one off for the division, and they'll be fine moving forward. I think that next game that they play in Dallas between those two is going to be the game that decides that division.
Right.
So we'll see there. Corey, what were your lows on the week? You didn't have a lot.
Yeah, I lost a pair of anytime touchdowns in a row, so I guess that's one of them. Didn't go through last week. Tony Pollard and James Cook have had some spells of bad luck and situations in general. We look at Pollard. Touchdown was called back on an illegal formation. So, Charlie, you were saying he's had a boatload of snaps where he hasn't scored. He has some of the most red zone touches in the league among running backs, and this man has not visited the end zone since way back in week 1. Yeah, tough luck, to say the very least. And then for James Cook, the Bills continuously, when they're inside the 5, just put Latavius Murray in. That's probably the most frustrating situation you can have when you have a running back who's been pretty efficient on the ground, not as involved in the pass-catching aspect as we wanted, drive you between the 20s. He does all the hard work, and then 32, 33, 34-year-old Latavius Murray comes in and poaches snaps inside the 5.
Yeah, he's a total vulture.
Yeah.
Total vulture. Let's move on to lessons learned. I kind of teased it earlier. The Ravens are for real. That's something that no doubt about it at this point. They have now beaten the Lions and the Seahawks. I think that those are very real wins. I think the Ravens are going to, they're in a great spot to win the division, and they're going to make a playoff run. At this point, they have to with Lamar, and that's the one thing that Lamar hasn't proven so far. He's on another MVP campaign this year. He just has to make the playoffs and make a run in the playoffs. So I think that the Ravens are for real. I think new coach theory is a thing. The Raiders fired Josh McDaniels. They bring in Antonio Pierce. That whole culture change happens. The locker room is a much better place, and they blow out the Giants. I know they played, Tommy DeVito?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the Raiders are really anything real by any means. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, none of that. But new coach theory is real, and when that coaching change happens, especially when it's a scenario like that where the players were so miserable towards the end, we do have to treat that as a thing, and we should probably bet on teams when they get a new coach. There's a lot of teams in the NFL this year that'll probably end up with new coaches by the end of the year. We do have to tread lightly, but when the scenario fits right, we do have to believe in it. And then my last lesson learned is stay away from Texans totals. I think it was 2 weeks ago I said take their unders. Last week, C.J. Stroud went off.
Yeah.
That game went way over. I think they went over in their game before that. Stay away from their totals because I don't really know what offense we're going to see from the Texans. Their defense is fine, so when I don't know what kind of offense we're going to see from Stroud and the Texans, I'd prefer to just stay away from totals.
I like it, and I really like that new coach theory thing because it's kind of similar to when a quarterback just comes out of nowhere, a backup gets called up, and they end up shocking everybody. It's the same thing to an extent. We didn't have film on an Antonio Pierce-led football team and an Antonio Pierce-led Raiders team. Now we do, and it was the perfect storm, right? When you're playing the Giants, things are typically going to go well for you. All right, and then for mine, I've got the Buccaneers secondary is horrible. I am not taking any credit away from C.J. Stroud being him. That was something I said a couple of minutes ago. But this Buccaneers team was already near the bottom of the league in a lot of metrics from their secondary standpoint, pretty much. Stroud is a great young QB, but by no means should a 40-second touchdown drive look that easy. They were just marching down the field. Tank Dell found a hole in his own, and for some reason, with like 15 seconds left, was able to haul in a 30-yard catch and get them on the 15. And then the dual running back era is alive and well. We already knew this, but I think it's becoming even more prominent. We have Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris. I don't want to call that a compatible duo. I'm a firm believer that Jaylen Warren's just the better back, and I think we've had conversations that would reflect that you agree. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, we see that dynamic, of course, health as well, so we need to see that aspect. Whoever's healthy on the Dolphins, I guess, can run the ball as well. It's really rare to see one running back get all of the touches, so I would say don't be scared, especially when we go over waivers in a little bit, to get a secondary running back. They're going to get enough touches, especially if there's pass-catching upside. We're seeing it all over the league. The Derrick Henrys of yesterday are kind of gone, so yeah.
That lightning and thunder duo,
Exactly.
A lot of teams are doing that. Josh Kelly on the Chargers, Deontay Foreman on the Bears, teams like that. It's time for the canceled list.
Our favorite part.
Yes.
Where we rant.
Yes, the canceled list. I don't think I canceled anybody last week. I actually had a good week last week. That's probably why I didn't cancel anybody. I'm going to start it off. I'm canceling the Falcons. I'm moving on. I can't do it. Last year, the Vikings were the team that had one-score games in every single game. So I probably canceled the Vikings last year. I was done doing the one-score game thing. Whenever it comes down to a field goal or a touchdown every week, I don't need that stress every Sunday. I don't need it. Yeah. So the best way to take that stress away, don't do it anymore. The Falcons, last week, they had every reason to beat the Vikings. Every reason. I can't even remember. Jaron Hall, is that their quarterback's name that started that game? I took the Falcons picking against Jaron Hall. Josh Dobbs comes in like the second quarter.
With no practice reps, by the way.
No practice reps. He didn't know the receivers' names. He didn't know the plays. He hadn't taken a snap under center with their center before that. They were doing that on the sidelines, and the Falcons still found a way to lose. Arthur Smith is giving Jonnu Smith action at the goal line instead of Bijan Robinson. It's unbelievable. So
strategy.
I'm moving on from the Falcons. I'm not doing it anymore. I see that. Oh, I like your canceled list option here. I did the same pretty much earlier in the year. You've got the Patriots.
Yeah, we've got a little 28-3 comeback action between the Patriots and the Falcons. Not to give Matt Ryan any flashbacks, but yeah, I thought a pass-heavy offense, which is what Bill O'Brien has traditionally run. We saw it back in Houston. We've seen it this year. Mac Jones threw for like 50-plus attempts in Week 1. I thought that would do well against the Commanders. I really did. Yeah, then after the game, I go and see New England scoring 15 points a game, and I'm asking myself, why did I bet on them? Yeah, that's not happening again unless they seriously flip things around. New England's struggling on all cylinders. The offense has no identity. The defense isn't doing much better, so I'm just going to stay away from them.
Yeah, no more of the Patriots. It's so hard to watch. Let's move on to our fantasy corner. It's a big week with bye weeks. The Chiefs, Eagles, Dolphins, and Rams are all on bye this week. That's
yikes.
I could list off 10 just off the top of my head, 10 players that are going to be out that are big players on fantasy football teams. Let's start with the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, Isaiah Pacheco, Travis Kelce, all guys that are going to be on bye this week.
Yep, so we're going to give you an impromptu Patrick Mahomes. He's no Patrick Mahomes, but he's had a lot of upside in the past. Kyler Murray, owned in just under half of leagues right now on ESPN, averaging 500 rushing yards per season despite the injuries, so somebody who's dynamic on the ground is going to get you those bonus points. He was the quarterback 3 overall in 2020, so we have to remember this guy at one point was at the top of the QB landscape in fantasy. That was with prime DeAndre Hopkins, so we have to temper our expectations a bit, but I really like Kyler here. And then also Cade Otton. He's no Travis Kelce, but at least 6 targets in 3 straight games. Got a couple of touchdowns last week. He seems to be that decisive third option behind Godwin and Evans. I thought it was going to be Trey Palmer. It's definitely not. Baker likes him a lot. Cade Otton's only owned in 19% of leagues.
You like Cade Otton.
I know. I've been saying that name a lot in the office lately.
I can see the twinkle in your eye when you talk about Cade Otton. For the Eagles, there's Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, DeAndre Swift, Devontae Smith.
All right, so your Jalen Hurts replacement will be Will Levis against that wonderful Bills secondary that just got torched by C.J. Stroud last week. Your running back's going to be Antonio Gibson, owned in 43% of leagues. Will Levis is owned at 35%. Should have said that before. Gibson has 10 targets in the last 2 games combined. He has caught all 10, an active pass catcher, and he actually beat out Brian Robinson Jr. in snaps and just overall efficiency last week. 2 wide receivers, we're going to go Tyler Boyd, owned in 48% of leagues. He's the tertiary option on that offense in Cincy that I honestly, when they're healthy, I'll put him up against anybody. And then Romeo Doubs, owned in 42% of leagues. It's not a great offense in Green Bay right now. They're learning, though. He does lead all Packers receivers in red zone targets with 12 of them. He's caught half. Christian Watson is not being utilized nearly as much as many anticipated. Is he still maybe operating at 80, 85%? I don't know, but Dobbs seems like the guy right now.
When you said Will Levis, I kind of scrunched my face up. I'm not a Will Levis fan.
Yeah.
I'm not a Will Levis supporter, but in this case, when it gets kind of ugly like this
matchup.
Without quarterbacks, you need to do something. So he's a good player, a good matchup. Moving on to the Dolphins, we've got Tua, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane's coming back soon, a whole bunch of names.
Yeah, this is where it's going to start to get ugly. You are asking for 11 waivers, so keep that in mind here. We did a full slate for you. It's going to get ugly towards the end. We're going to start with Taylor Heineke facing a pretty beat-up Cardinals defense. He did a serviceable job last week, 260 passing yards. This is somebody who's just going to get the job done. Don't expect 20, 30 points, but he'll get you 15. He got about that last week, so I like Taylor Heineke under center. Wide receiver, Khalil Shakir, getting more involved. Obviously, there's Stephon Diggs. Gabe Davis has been somewhat consistent, and right when I start to say that on this show, never told you to bet on him, he drops an egg, 0. So Khalil Shakir has kind of taken away some of his targets. Demario Douglas, owned in 27% of leagues. He's on one of the most pass-heavy offenses in the league in the Patriots. I'm not betting on the Patriots. I'm betting on one of their receivers, so we're being kind of careful here. More so of a prop option, and again, we're scraping bottom of the barrel here, but it's not a successful offense, but they do throw the ball over 60% of the time in New England. So Demario Douglas, an okay option here.
And if you have a guy like Tyreek Hill, you're never going to fully replace that kind of production.
No.
But
safe to say there's a drop-off there.
Right,
but.
So this is where it just kind of gets ugly for you. With the Rams, the final team on bye, we've got Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Matthew Stafford's hurt, so you're probably already replacing him.
Right. Yeah, Carson Wentz acquisition, that's interesting. We'll see if we can cover that later on. But Curtis Samuel and Noah Brown. Curtis Samuel owned in 38% of leagues. He needs to be healthy. He's questionable right now. He's one of 4 Commanders receivers with at least 40 targets so far. We talk about quarterbacks who like to spread the ball around a lot. Sam Howell's definitely one of them. In Washington, this is also the most pass-heavy offense in the league. They throw it 68% of the time. Noah Brown had a career game. Kind of out of nowhere, but again, Buccaneers secondary will temper our expectations. He's only owned in 14% of leagues. It's another wide receiver on an offense where the quarterback, this time Stroud, likes to spread the ball around. 1 week it's Dalton Schultz, Nico Collins, Tank Dell. Last week it was Noah Brown. 5, 5, and 6 targets in the last 3 games. Again, this is number 11 of 11, but Noah Brown had a great week last week. We'll see if we can build off it.
Well, we're going to go to break, and on the other side, we've got our Week 10 NFL picks and anytime touchdown scorers on 1430 ESPN Beaver Dam and Daily Dodge TV. Welcome back to Primetime Picks on Daily Dodge TV and 1430 ESPN Beaver Dam. Cory, let's just get right into our picks. We're head-to-head in a couple of these. I'm 0 for 1 in the all-time head-to-head matchup that we had last week. You had the Eagles, I had the Cowboys. This week I'm starting us off with the Chargers. Lions are at the Chargers. The Chargers are +3 at home, over-under of 48.5. I've got the Chargers +3 in this one. The Chargers in the last 5 games against the Lions, they're 5-0 straight up at home. They're home again. I know that being at home in LA for the Chargers, it's not really a home field advantage, but they are 5-0 at home. They're also 5-2 against the spread in the last 7 games between the two of them. I think the public's going to be all over Detroit here. I think the idea that Detroit, they're on their way up and everybody kind of just agrees that the Chargers aren't good. I disagree. I think the Chargers are fine. Their defense isn't great. Sure, Staley's always going to lose them games. I get it. But the Chargers in this spot is really good. The Chargers have won, 4 or 5 straight games, I believe. They're playing really well, and they're 4-2 against the spread this season after starting off 0-2. This team is playing well. I like the Chargers here. For your first pick, we are going head-to-head.
Yep. We're starting early. So Lions -3 against the Chargers. I want to give the Chargers credit. I really do. And I'll give them some. I love Justin Herbert, full transparency. That's the one actual, non-Bears jersey purchase that I'm thinking about. I would get a Justin Herbert jersey and have no problem with it, right? Setting a lot of records through the first 3 years of somebody's career for passing yards, passing touchdowns. He's up there. Fact of the matter is this. What we saw last week was Zach Wilson looking absolutely lost in a primetime game against LA. The Jets never had a chance. Now, the Lions have an elite wide receiver one, and I will call him elite now, especially from a fantasy perspective. Had 19 targets in one game at one point in Amon-Ra St. Brown, who Jared Goff has had no issue leaning on. And the Chargers secondary has allowed a league-high 286 passing yards per game. If you like points, tune into this one. I also just want to say, I really think the Chargers are going to be hurt by those injuries. They've adapted, right? They haven't had Mike Williams for a little over a month. Now Joshua Palmer's on the IR, so it's essentially going to have to be the Keenan Allen show. I think that's what this game's going to come down to, but it should be close.
It should be close, and yeah, those powder blue jerseys. It's going to be a good uniform matchup. Yeah,
Yep.
Good uniform matchup on Sunday. That's an afternoon game. For my second pick, and I guess your second pick, we're head-to-head again. 49ers at Jacksonville. Jacksonville is a 3-point dog at home, over-under of 45. I'm taking the Niners. I'm not taking them with the points, though. I'm just taking money line. So it's about -160 right now. I think they lose. I think they right the ship here.
Okay.
I don't think that they're going to lose 4 games in a row. I just don't. I don't see it with a Shanahan-led team. I think Brock Purdy's going to find it back to what he was. Maybe not as good, but even still, I think that they're going to right the ship there. The Niners are 4-1 straight up in their last 5 against the Jags. They're also 5-0 against the spread in those 5 games. They're 8-3 straight up against AFC South teams in their last 11 games. And the Jags have won 5 straight, and they haven't lost since week 3. So I know that could be something that people would use to say the Jags are going to keep playing well. I actually think it's going to work on the opposite there. I think the Niners get right here. I think the Jags kind of fall back down to where they were before. They're 6-2 right now. I could see them ending up 6-3 at the end of this week. Why do you like the Jags here?
So I do agree with you. I have the Niners by a slim margin. I think the Jags covered. Jags are 6-2 against the spread this year, 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 games overall. So a bit of a clash there because the Niners are 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 games against the Jags. I think this is the best Jaguars team we've seen in a while. Obviously a healthy wide receiving core. Trevor Lawrence has been a little underwhelming. He's taken care of the ball, but only 9 touchdowns through 8 games. Jacksonville's 7-2 straight up in their last 9 games at home. Again, I will say I think the 49ers win this one by 1 or 2. I think it's just too strong of an offense for Jacksonville at the moment. I talked to you about this right before we turned the mics on. It could be an ugly game. It could be 31-27. I really don't know what we're going to get with these two teams. I'm hoping it's not 31-27, maybe like 31-30, something like that. But I think the Jags keep it close.
Keep it in that field goal. That's all you need. For my touchdown score, I'm going back to the Lions-Chargers game. I've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's minus 110, so they think that he's probably going to get one here. He's not plus odds, which you normally want to pick here. The Chargers have allowed the 11th most passing touchdowns on the season. They've also allowed the 3rd most passing yards, and they're the 3rd worst overall defense. Amon-Ra's last touchdown was week 6, so he's relatively due. He hasn't had that many touchdowns this year. I saw one of them in Lambeau. That stunk. I think Amon-Ra gets right. I think he gets back on the board here. I think he scores a touchdown.
All right.
For your touchdown pick, you're going back to the well. Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm going to try and pull off what you did with Chris Olave. He wronged you once, came back, redeemed himself. Going Tony Pollard anytime touchdown. Really, anytime now, Tony Pollard. It's been since week 1. I put in parentheses here. I hope Tony Pollard can pull this off. Dallas is a 17-point favorite against a garbage New York Giants team. If there was ever a game for Tony Pollard to find the end zone for the first time since week 1, here we are. I'm so confident that if Pollard does not score, I will not mention his name on this show for the rest of the year. Fully confident that somehow, some way, Tony Pollard is going to find the end zone in a game that he should. Dallas should be going run heavy very early. I have no belief in the Giants. If that does not happen, this is the last time you will ever hear me say Tony Pollard.
Tony Pollard to the canceled list, Fad?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so Tony Pollard will get canceled if he doesn't score a touchdown.
Permanently canceled.
He already has the record. I think we mentioned it last week. He has a record for most snaps taken without a touchdown. I'm not sure exactly what the stat is, but it's something along those lines, and it's amazing. I think this is a great week for him to finally get that touchdown. I think you're right about that.
Needs to happen.
For our parlay, we're 1-5. We're under the black here, but we can still make it back with a couple parlays. We just probably need to hit a couple more here before the end of the season. For my parlay pick, I'm taking the Pats and the Colts first half under 21.5. When it's over that 21, the key number of 21 in the first half, just by that half point, I like taking the under here. I took the Pats Commanders first half over last week. I think that landed on 24. I like the under in this one. I know that the Colts offense has been really great, but they also haven't been playing defenses that are all that spectacular. I think that the Pats defense is still really strong. There's a lot of weird stuff going on in New England with the Patriots. I really like this under 21.5. I think that'll start off our parlay right. For you're going to college football.
I'm going to go to college football. Michigan minus 3.5 against Penn State. I hate Michigan so much. We are both Badger fans here. Don't really have a horse in the race anymore. Sign stealing or not, Michigan has shown the last couple of years that they are able to heat up late in the season. They handled an Ohio State team that was and is still pretty talented with Marvin Harrison Jr. out there. Blake Corum's been a juggernaut machine once again. J.J. McCarthy looks more confident this year and has a completion percentage of around 75%. Strength of schedule has not been great so far, all right? Not too many challenges, even going into conference play. So this should be interesting. I like Penn State a lot, but Michigan has a lot of guys who have been to the college football playoff and a lot of guys who know what it takes to get back there.
I think it matters a lot when a team gets called cheaters to the level that Michigan has been. I think that they go out there with something to prove, and they play a lot more for of course they want to win this game, and I think they're going to try and win this game by more than a field goal. They're playing angry. I also forgot to mention with my Pats Colts under, this game is in Germany.
Yeah.
They're playing at 8:30 our time.
Jet lag.
The jet lag. I haven't looked into the travel details, which I probably should do, but I still think that they're going to come out a little bit slow, and that under will hit. For the group pick, I have 2 down for this week. Tyson Bagent tonight, over 1.5 or over 0.5 interceptions, minus 135. So for him to throw a pick tonight against the Panthers, or we can go for one that doesn't hurt you as much. Joe Burrow over 1.5 passing touchdowns.
I'm going to go with the first one.
Yeah?
He looks so aggressive, and that's nice to see as a Bears fan. We're seeing somebody who reads the field well, gets rid of the ball pretty quickly. The first knock on Tyson was in the first week he was in. This guy doesn't throw the ball down the field at all. Since then, he has done that and more. And to the extent where he's throwing into double coverage, there's little short curl routes where a corner is just camping there waiting for him to throw it, and he does. There's not a lot of experience there. The Panthers secondary is actually pretty nice. Only problem with this pick and how it could backfire is if by some miracle and this would be the game for it to happen, the Bears blow a team out. I know, seems like an impossible feat. But if there's a team they're going to do it to, it's the Panthers. If that happens, it becomes run heavy, and Tyson has no reason to throw the ball. But I think he throws at least one.
I think he gets one, and like Chris Collinsworth says, Justin Fields can learn from Tyson Bagent, right?
Don't even get me started with it.
That was a setup. For our parlay, we've got Pats, Colts, first half under 21.5, Michigan minus 4.5, Tyson Bagent over 0.5 interceptions. That's plus 540. That's all we've got for this week's edition of Primetime Picks on Daily Dodge TV and 1430 ESPN Beaver Dam. Thanks as always for joining us, and good luck this week in Week 10 of the NFL.